Chris Graham with Trailblazer RV, here to take you through this 2017 Venture RV Sonic 230 VRL. Starting right here at the front of the trailer, where you've got your propane and battery systems. To access your propane valves, you can open the flap on the top of the tank cover, and we just remove the whole cover to access the tanks themselves. These are dual 20-pound propane bottles. Both of these are full right now, with an automatic switchover propane regulator. You can see that the regulator is pointing to this bottle, and the sight glass shows red, showing that there is no propane in the line. But as I open that valve, the sight glass turns from red to clear, showing that the propane is flowing. We recommend opening both valves, then the regulator will deplete the supply bottle first, then automatically switch over and start to pull propane from the reserve bottle. When that happens, the sight glass will turn back to red, and you can flip the regulator over to the other bottle, remove the first bottle to go and refill it without ever shutting down your propane system. Your battery is mounted right behind the propane bottles. 2 leads go into the battery, red to positive, black to negative. It's a flooded wet cell battery, so it does require a little bit of maintenance. We recommend once or twice a year popping these 2 caps off the battery and checking the fluid level in the 6 cells beneath. If the fluid level looks a little bit low, and especially if you can see metal plates sticking through the fluid, you'll want to top that up with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. We also recommend removing the battery for winter storage, storing it inside somewhere where it's not going to freeze, and if possible, putting a charge on that battery sometime over the course of the off-season. Around the side of the trailer, you've got your pass-through front storage. In here is where you'll find your power cord. It's a 30 amp power cord. Some of the sites that you stay at will have 30 amp power available. For those that don't, we also supply the 15 amp park adapter to plug this into a normal household style power outlet. We'll find that when we go inside. The crank handle in here is for your stabilizer jacks. So you can crank those down to be snug with the ground, but you don't want to actually lift the trailer with them. They're not designed to take up that kind of weight. Right here is where you'll do your sewer dumping. We supply a new 20-foot medium heavy-duty sewer hose. It's stored in the rear bumper right now. When you attach the hose, you'll attach the hose right here. Other end goes into the ground, and you've got 2 valves, a larger black valve and a smaller gray valve. Always dump your black valve first. Once that's finished draining, you can close that valve and dump the gray valve to use your gray water to flush the sewer contents through the hose. Once that's finished dumping, you can close the valve and always replace the travel cap for travel. Right above that is your outside shower. Hot and cold water access here, and a shower head that extends up to about that high. And you've got 2 water connections here. The one on the right is your city water connection. So you can hook your hose up to that, preferably one of those white non-toxic drinking water hoses, and you can pressurize your water lines from the water source. We do recommend using a water pressure regulator when you're hooking up to city water. That'll ensure that you don't over pressurize your water lines. Don't confuse this one with this one. This is your black tank flush system. So when you're dumping that sewer holding tank, you can hook a hose up to here and it'll spray out the inside lining of the tank. Keep the monitor probes clean, and just kind of help sanitize that tank. Here at your running gear, your tires are inflated to 50 psi. Stamped on the side of the sidewall, 50 psi cold, and we do recommend running them right at 50 psi. Also, your lug nuts have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds, and we recommend periodically retorquing your lug nuts. Also, periodically repacking your wheel bearings. We recommend it every year, but this one has easy lube axles. So behind this center cap is a grease circ that will allow you to grease your inner and outer wheel bearings with a grease gun. If you're giving it a little bit of fresh grease a couple of times a year, no need to repack the wheel bearings every year, but should still do it every 3 to 5 years. Right here is where that 30 amp power cord attaches, and your fridge vent is right above that. You can remove that panel to access the back of the fridge, but it is primarily just a vent for some air to flow around the fridge. Satellite and cable TV hookups at the back, and you can pick up an optional Furrion solar charging system that'll plug in right there. Your spare tire is mounted on the back of the trailer, and it's worth pointing out that the trailer doesn't come with a jack or a wheel wrench. No trailer does. So you'll want to just check to make sure the wheel wrench that you have with your tow vehicle fits the lug nuts for this trailer, just in case you ever do need to change a tire on the fly. Here on the camping side, you've got your hot water tank. This is a direct spark ignition gas electric hot water tank. So if you're plugged into power, you can heat your water via electricity by pressing the black rocker switch to the on position. There's also a switch inside that you'll have to turn on to use the tank electrically. There's 2 reset buttons here on the outside of the tank. If you ever overheat the tank, you'll have to reset these before you can start it again. And that primarily would happen if the tank was actually accidentally started up with no water in it. This is also where you'll drain the water from the hot water tank by pulling the plug out of the bottom of the tank. On the end of that plug is a rod about this long. It's your sacrificial anode rod. The anode rod will corrode over time to preserve the inside lining of the tank. So that rod can get quite pitted and corroded looking before it needs to be replaced, but typically every 3 to 5 years you'll need to replace it with a new one. It's a 1 1/16 inch socket to pull that out, and before you remove it, make sure you use the pressure relief valve to bleed the pressure off of the system. Right next to the hot water tank is where you can fill your freshwater tank. That just fills with gravity right into the tank. Again, best to use one of those white drinking water garden hoses for that. Directly below that, if you draw a line straight down, you'll find your freshwater drain, and you can see the last of the water just draining out of there now. Open up that valve to drain all the water from the fresh tank. Your furnace exhaust gets very hot when that furnace is running, so make sure if there's kids around the RV, they know not to touch that. And here at the front storage compartment, this is where we'll find that 15 amp park adapter, and there is a light just inside here for the storage compartment area. Your awning is power, and I'll show you where to operate that from just inside. Right inside the door is a switch for your awning, so if we press and hold the out button, the awning will extend 8 feet, and you don't have to bring it out the full 8 feet. If there's a tree or another RV in the way, you can stop it at any point. And this is a height adjustable power awning. So if you like, you can adjust one side of the awning a little lower than the other, so you can control where the rainwater runs off. You'll do that right here. It's best to put both sides back to the same height before you retract the awning. That'll ensure that the canvas rolls up nice and straight on the roller too. So follow me inside the trailer, and we'll go over a few more things. With the awning, I'm just going to bring that awning back in. It's a little breezy today, and it's always a good idea to bring the awning in if it's windy, and especially if you're not actively using it. A couple of switches here at the bottom. One is for your outside yard light, one for your inside main bank of lights, and the red switch is for an LED awning light that's inside the roller tube. So when the awning is fully extended, you can use the awning retract extend button to tilt that roller tube so you can point that light where you need it. The other device here is your furnace thermostat, so this controls the heating system for the RV. If we turn that up to temperature, the furnace fan comes on immediately, but it's going to be a few seconds before we hear that direct spark ignition and the burner light up. We should be able to hear that when it happens. There we go. So now, in a few seconds, we would have warm air blowing right from the furnace itself. When we shut that off, or when the RV comes to temperature, the burner goes out immediately, but that fan's still going to run for another 30 seconds to a minute just to go through its cycle. The stovetop is a 2-burner gas stovetop. You can light the burners with a barbecue lighter by turning it over to the light setting and just lighting it with the igniter. Always a good idea, every time you replace a propane bottle on the front of the trailer, first thing you should do is just come to here and light both stove burners. Once you've lit the burners, you know you've bled any air that was on the propane system. You've bled that off, so your automatic appliances like your fridge, furnace, and hot water tank won't have any trouble lighting up. Speaking of the fridge, it's a Norcold 6.3 cubic foot gas electric fridge. Very simple operation, just turn it on. The green light indicates that it's running on electricity, and the orange light indicates that it's running on propane. Right now we're not plugged into electricity, so it tried that first. When it didn't have power available, it automatically lit up on propane. If the fridge light turns red, that means for whatever reason it has tried the light on propane and failed. What you should do in that situation is just shut it off and turn it on again and let it go through its process again. It's possible that you just had a little air in your propane lines, or obviously double check to make sure that you haven't run out of propane. On the floor beneath that is your power converter. This is where you'll find your 110 volt breakers for your AC circuits and 12 volt fuses for your DC circuits. Mostly 15 amp fuses in here, but you do have one 40 amp fuse. So not a bad idea to have some spare 15 and 40 amp fuses along with you. It's not uncommon in an RV to blow a fuse, and if you have some spares, it won't be that big a deal if you need to change one sometime in a campground. Air conditioning, right above my head, is controlled right on the air conditioner unit itself. There's settings for the fan, so you can run just the fan on low or high speed, or the air conditioning itself on low or high speed. If you're plugged into a 15 amp circuit or with a long extension cord, you may opt to just run the fan rather than running the air conditioner itself, as the air conditioner uses quite a lot of power when it kicks in. There's also a thermostat control here that you can just set to whatever is comfortable for you, so that the air conditioning will come on and off as needed. Your stereo system located at the back. This is an AM, FM, CD, DVD, USB, auxiliary, and Bluetooth system. And should point out, especially where it is your DVD player, that there's two different speaker zones. Zone 1 is your interior speakers. Zone 2 is your exterior speakers. So especially if you're watching a DVD, you'll want to have your Zone 2 speakers turned off so that you're not playing the DVD sound out through the campground. The TV requires 110 volt power, so you'll need to be plugged into either shore power or the generator to operate the TV, even though the DVD player works on 12-volt battery power. Items that use 110-volt power only: TV, microwave, air conditioner, and power outlets. Somewhere there's a power outlet. Should also just point out the safe tech box here on the end of this cabinet. If you open that up, you'll find 110-volt and 12-volt chargers in there. Good spot to charge electronic devices and just get stuff up off the counter. Here in the bathroom, a couple of things worth pointing out. This power outlet is a notable power outlet. This is your GFI, so it has the test and reset buttons on it, just like the ones in the bathroom of a home. In an RV, though, that is wired in series with several of your other power outlets. So if you trip the GFI, you'll lose power at all of your power outlets. Just come in here, press the reset button, and that'll reset the whole circuit. This is also where you'll find your monitor panel, so you can check the level of your battery, which right now is good, low, fair, good, charging. Your fresh tank, which is completely empty, black and gray holding tanks, which are also completely empty. This is also where you'll activate the water pump. And you hear that pump come on and pressurize the system. Now you can leave that switch on while you're out camping. And your water heater. The switch on the right for electricity. Remember, if you're running the water heater on electricity, you also have to have the black rocker switch outside turned to the on position, and the left for propane. And when you activate the water heater on propane, the DSI fault light comes on, showing that the burner is not active. But just like the furnace, if we give that a second, we should hear the DSI spark and that burner light up. Just like so. Now, in 20 to 25 minutes, we would have hot water from the water tank. The other tank heater switch is not for your hot water tank at all. This is for your holding tanks. If you're camping in the cooler weather and it's dipping down below 0 degrees Celsius, you can turn that on to activate tank heaters on the tanks to extend your camping season a little bit. Anytime you're using your RV's sewer system, you'll want to use a good potent RV toilet chemical. The chemical comes in powder, liquid, or tablet form. Any of the three, and when you add it to the tank, you'll just add it right into the toilet bowl. Then push down halfway on the foot flush to fill the bowl with water, and then the rest of the way to dump the whole works down into the tank. That chemical takes a little bit of water to activate it, so always make sure you put some water down with the chemical. And you'll want to put new chemical into the tank immediately after every time you dump the black holding tank. You have a smoke detector and a propane leak detector. Your smoke detector uses its own 9-volt battery. It's not wired into the RV's electrical system, so you'll want to test that periodically to make sure that that battery hasn't gone dead. The propane leak detector, and this is actually a propane and carbon monoxide detector, is wired into the RV. So it will do three things. It'll alert you to a propane leak. However, you would almost certainly smell the propane if there was a propane leak before the alarm goes off. Potentially to a carbon monoxide situation, in which case you wouldn't smell anything. Or the third thing and most common thing that this does is alert you to a low voltage situation. If your RV battery gets very low, this will alarm just like a smoke detector does when its battery starts to get low. Here in the master bedroom, you have an emergency escape window. With this style of window, it can be propped open for ventilation, just like so. If it needs to be used in case of an emergency, it hinges all the way up for egress, and just grab the red tab to pull the screen out. I always recommend practicing that a few times because it is a little bit of a tricky window to open, and in a panic situation you may have a hard time with it if you've never practiced it before. There is reading lights on both sides of the bed, 110 volt charging on one, 12 volt charging on the other, and there is storage in the headboard as well for tablets, phones, books, that kind of thing. TV bracket mounting area here on the wall. Make sure that you find the backing in this wall. There's not a lot of backing in interior walls of RVs, so use a stud finder. It'll be wood backing. You can find it with a stud finder, and don't use screws any longer than about 1 inch to mount the TV bracket. And I think for the most part that covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the 2017 Venture RV Sonic 230 VRL. If you have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer, or you can check our website, trailblazerrv.com. Thanks for watching.